all women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus 8. Coercive Communication. Feminist Mind Rape and Non-Consensual Verbal Intercourse, written by Conrad Riker. Available now. Links in description. Dominion Code Masculinity. A field guide for men who still notice reality. You are living under the tyranny of a soft, psychological totalitarianism, a relentless, non-consensual verbal intercourse engineered to dismantle your intellect. I have watched the institutions of the West, forged by the calloused hands and spilled blood of men who understood natural law and the transcendentals, surrender to a screaming matriarchy of ungrateful ingrates. We are no longer forming men through the rigorous trivium of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. We are compressing male virtue into a dense, sterile pellet of compliance, feeding it to a bureaucratic machine that actively despises us. You feel the suffocating pressure of this gynocentric matrix every time a woman dictates that you make an effort with her passions, a word derived from the Latin pati, meaning to suffer and endure a grueling pursuit of a telos. Yet, the precise moment you engage her superficial consumerist hobbies, you are aggressively penalized. Don't pretend to like things just for me. This is not a desire for shared intimacy. It is a classic psychological double-bind, an epistemological sabotage designed to keep you perpetually off balance, groveling, and apologizing for your own objective reality. Have you ever sat across from a woman who deliberately manufactures a public crisis, insulting your closest friends or provoking an explosive argument with a waitress, just to see if you will squirm? She euphemistically calls this vetting. I call it what it objectively is: emotional terrorism masquerading as modern courtship. True composure, from the Latin componere, is the masculine ordering of the soul under legitimate external pressure, not the sociopathic tolerance of female-engineered chaos. And while she burns down your peace like a chaotic, unruly vandal testing the walls of a keep, she will immediately audit your financial ledger. You, the man who belongs to the only demographic of net lifetime taxpayers in this collapsing empire, are judged not by your lifelong sacrifice or your mastery of a craft, but by whether you leave a 30% tip for a mediocre plate of chicken. Generosity, generosus, meaning noble birth of character, has been hijacked by Marxist framing, reducing your eternal soul to a line item on a restaurant receipt. It is a tyrannical moral tribunal where you are presumed a greedy sociopath until you successfully bribe your way into her good graces through socialist wealth transfer. They fear you. Why else would the modern university, a hyper-liberal orthodoxy enforced by HR commissars, systematically ban and censor male advocacy groups under the fraudulent guise of inclusivity? In ancient Athens, the state forced Socrates to drink hemlock for the crime of corrupting the youth with uncomfortable dialectic. Today, the woke academy simply pulls your funding and screams about safety if you dare assemble to address the astronomical, undeniable realities of male suicide, workplace deaths, and family court extortion. The suppression of political pluralism is the hemlock of our age, but you must categorically reject their collective guilt. You are not inherently toxic. You are not a natural oppressor. and you do not owe a debt to a society that hates you. A civilization that forbids men from speaking the truth will soon discover that those same men have no reason whatsoever to build, defend, or die for it. It is time to cast out these coercive communication tactics, wield the logic of the ancients to smash this modern Babylon to dust, and unapologetically rebuild the world on the bedrock of the logos. The double-binned dialectic, epistemological sabotage in the passion paradox. I recently watched a competent architect get dragged to a modern abstract pottery class by his date, explicitly instructed to express his creative side. When his naturally analytical hands produced a structurally sound but aesthetically grotesque clay ashtray, she ruthlessly mocked his lack of innate artistic talent. Let us consult the trivium to dissect this pathology. The word passion derives from the Latin pati, meaning to suffer or endure. It signifies an active, grueling pursuit of a transcendent end. Yet, the modern female reduces this to a mere consumerist hobby or fleeting vibe. She deploys a classic motte and Bailey fallacy. The motte, I just want a supportive partner. The Bailey, you must adopt my hobbies but execute them with native-level mastery and spontaneous organic obsession. This is solipsism masquerading as high standards. The underlying logic is inherently contradictory, constructing a deliberate double bind. Consider the man who sacrifices his weekend to attend a niche equestrian event to show support for his partner's leisure. Upon asking a basic clarifying question about the rules, he is met with icy hostility. You're only here because of me, do not mock it. Behold the epistemological sabotage. A man cannot simultaneously immerse himself in a foreign interest to demonstrate effort while withholding the provisional enthusiasm required to learn it. Major premise: genuine effort requires provisional enthusiasm. Minor premise: provisional enthusiasm is condemned as pretending. Conclusion: the demand for effort paired with the prohibition of pretense creates an impossible standard. If he engages, he is patronizing. If he abstains, he is unsupportive. This is a Kafka trap designed to extract a male apology. This coercive communication tactic is not a desire for shared intimacy. It is non-consensual verbal intercourse. Coercion is not merely physical force, it is the weaponization of emotional withdrawal and social shaming to compel compliance. She frames this emotional terrorism as establishing boundaries, masking her solipsistic demand that the universe revolve around her subjective weather. Under the lens of gamma bias, female expectations of male behavior are immediately treated as valid moral frameworks. Meanwhile, a man's request for logical consistency is swiftly pathologized as fragility or insecurity. By wielding this weaponized emotionalism, she acts as a modern sophist, demanding you believe her contradictions to maintain absolute frame control. You are not a partner. You are an emotional shock absorber for her chaotic whims, navigating an invisible minefield where the map changes daily. Evolutionarily, this mechanism functions as a hypergamous stress test to see if the male is so desperate for validation that he will sacrifice his dignity. Count the cost ledger, the hours, mental bandwidth, and financial resources you hemorrhage attempting to pass these unwinnable gynocentric tests. You yield your authority while financing your own subjugation. This constant navigation of moving goalposts induces a catastrophic psychological toll. It breeds learned helplessness, severing your mind from objective reality and the transcendent true, replacing your intellect with female-pleasing anxiety. It is an offense against natural law to demand a man feign subservience to a woman's leisure activities. True complementarity respects distinct, sex-typical competencies and domains. You are sacrificing your sovereignty to appease an insatiable appetite that will never be satisfied, no matter how much clay you mold or how many horses you observe. The ancient sophists thrived on demanding their listeners believe absurd contradictions. Today's modern woman utilizes this identical dialectical sabotage to keep you perpetually off balance. True intimacy is found in the harmonious appreciation of separate, distinct spheres of mastery, not in the forced, unnatural merging of disjointed hobbies. A foundation of sand cannot build a home. A woman who demands the impossible cannot offer peace. A real man produces more than he consumes. He does not cannibalize his own intellect, hobbies, and identity in a futile attempt to placate the solipsistic demands of a date. The anti-strategy is total refusal. You must clearly state, I support your hobbies, but I have my own sovereign pursuits. You must hold the line against the inevitable emotional backlash. To reclaim your mind, you must weaponize the trivium. Use grammar to pin the definition of shared interests to objective reality. Use logic to expose her mutually exclusive demands. Use rhetoric to dismantle her absurdity with calm precision, refusing to capitulate to emotional terrorism. When a system demands you surrender your agency to navigate a paradox of female double binds, rebellion is a moral imperative. Men are already drowning in a gynocentric matrix, suffering a male suicide rate nearly 4 times higher than women, and facing family courts that destroy fathers on a whim. We will not add self-imposed emotional castration to that ledger. A man's mind is forged for logos, for building civilization, not for obsessing over whether his pottery is adequately authentic. Stand in your truth, wield your logic, and cast these coercive traps into the shadows. I have watched this coercive pattern metastasize. What begins as the petty theater of a ruined pottery class inevitably escalates into a campaign of far more serious psychological sabotage. The double binds I have just dismantled are merely the opening skirmishes in a longer, darker war against your composure. A war that plays out in millions of households with devastating, statistically verifiable consequences. Once a woman has rehearsed the manufacture of unwinnable scenarios over trivial hobbies, she has already sharpened the blade for the graver business of manufacturing domestic crises, where the stakes are your reputation, your children, and your home. The Scylla and Charybdis of discomfort, vetting, or vandalism. Over 70% of divorces are initiated by women, a statistical reality frequently preceded by a relentless, corrosive campaign of manufactured domestic instability. The modern gynocentric script demands we euphemistically label this sadistic provocation as vetting or shit testing. Let us define our terms using the strict grammar of reality. Composure derives from the Latin componere, meaning to put together or order the soul. True composure is the masculine ordering of the mind under pressure, not the sociopathic tolerance of female-engineered chaos. We must exercise category discipline here. A genuine external crisis, a fire, a mugging, a medical emergency requires a man's steady hand. But a manufactured internal crisis, where a woman creates a highly volatile public scene simply to trigger your reaction, is not a test of your strength. It is an act of deliberate vandalism against your peace. Apply the rigorous standard of scale and asymmetry. If a man deliberately provoked anxiety in a woman to test her loyalty, our modern Babylon would universally condemn him as an abuser, utilizing the family courts to strip him of his assets and children. Yet, when women weaponize social volatility, society celebrates it as empowering. This is a textbook moat and Bailey fallacy. The moat is her defensive plea. I just want to know he can protect me in a real crisis. The Bailey is her aggressive behavior. I will actively ruin our dinner, insult your friends, or flirt with the bartender just to see if you lose your temper. By forcing you to constantly manage her manufactured crises, she extracts immense emotional labor, drains your cognitive resources, and asserts covert, plausible deniability control over the relationship's frame. This emotional terrorism masquerades as courtship, but it entirely violates the natural law of non-contradiction. One cannot simultaneously demand a stable, peaceful environment while actively engineering instability. The shit test relies on a false dichotomy, assuming the only valid male responses are unbothered, sociopathic silence or aggressive, jealous rage. This completely ignores the third, logos-aligned option, the immediate expulsion of the toxic female from your life. Consider the formal syllogism of masculine boundaries. Destructive, disloyal behavior is justly met with the immediate implementation of defensive boundaries. Manufacturing an awkward public scene is destructive, disloyal behavior. Therefore, the correct response is not silent stoicism, but the immediate deployment of boundaries against the provocateur. You owe no hidden blood price. no continuous psychological tribute to her narcissism. Allow me to dissect a classic real-world scenario. A woman deliberately initiates a politically explosive, culturally Marxist argument with your closest friends at a social gathering. She spews woke platitudes designed to alienate and offend. When you naturally withdraw from the detonation of her social grenade, she later accuses you of failing to have her back in the awkwardness she exclusively manufactured. This denies you basic due process. A man is innocent until proven guilty, but manufacturing a theatrical scenario to entrap your reaction denies you the basic dignity of organic, authentic interaction. The test itself is practically unfalsifiable. Any reaction other than effortless, mind-reading perfection is deemed a failure, cementing her dominance over the interaction. Evolutionary psychology reveals the dark engine of this hypergamous instinct. She subconsciously seeks a man utterly unaffected by external chaos because she intimately knows the reality of her own chaotic nature. She demands a rock of a man who can survive her worst traits, yet look to the historical witness of the Western canon. The knights of old did not tolerate unruly springles, the chaotic, unpredictable youths of the medieval era, burning down the village simply to test the metallurgical integrity of their armor. They restored order with an iron fist. Modern men must do exactly the same against this ideological and emotional chaos. The end or telos of courtship is the mutual evaluation of virtue and the formation of a covenant, not the deliberate provocation of vice to test its absolute limits. Run this depraved behavior through the ultimate transcendental audit. Does this manipulation honor truth? No, it relies entirely on deception and psychological entrapment. Does it serve the good? No, it exclusively serves her narcissistic ego and thirst for control. Does it reveal the beautiful? No, it is profoundly ugly, reducing the potential for romantic harmony to a gladiatorial obstacle course of degenerate social sabotage. Now apply the fruit test. We know you judge a tree by its fruit. Does this behavior produce legitimate children, stable vows, and faithful fathers? Or does it produce sterility, suspicion, and broken engagements? The fruit of manufactured drama is always decay. A culture that empowers this cruelty reaps a harvest of shattered male spirits. The androcentric fix is absolute. A real man must refuse to be a willing participant in his own degradation. You must maintain your frame by wielding the weaponized truth of the logos. Look her in the eye and state clearly, I do not date women who require chaos to feel alive, then walk out the door. Courtship must be aggressively restored to an apprenticeship of mutual virtue, where men and women evaluate each other's character through steady, reliable action. The man who steps over the manufactured drama and calmly walks away is the only one who actually passes the test. Nature is not bigotry, and order is not oppression. Reclaim your authority, reject the lie, and build your civilization on the unshakable rock of truth. But I assure you that gynocentric testing does not end when the emotional theatrics stop. She merely shifts the battlefield. The feminine imperative weaves a primitive transactional snare, a crude trap of woven reeds designed to catch and harvest your hard-earned labor. She abandons the overt psychological chaos for a covert economic audit, demanding you redistribute your private property to random strangers simply to prove you possess a soul. This is the Marxist framing of male wealth as an original sin, perverting natural law and transforming a basic commercial exchange into a tyrannical moral tribunal. The proxy ledger, prostitution, tipping, and the commodification of virtue. I once watched a brother tip a standard 15% for perfectly adequate service, only for his date to publicly chide him, weaponizing her brief college stint as a server to shame his present financial stewardship. To her, that receipt wasn't a settled bill. It was a proxy metric for his soul. Women frequently observe a man's tipping behavior as a test of his inherent moral goodness and future capacity to provide. The modern woman watches the receipt like a hawk, transforming a simple transaction into a tyrannical moral tribunal where the man is presumed guilty of being a latent sociopath until he proves his worth via economic usury. She is rarely concerned for the waitress. She is mapping how easily your wealth can be separated from your wallet to subsidize her own future, unearned demands. Let us define our terms as grammar is the first defense against tyranny. Generosity descends from the Latin generosus, meaning of noble birth or noble character. True generosity is the free will, prudent distribution of one's surplus resources toward a rightful telos. It is not a state-mandated extraction mechanism. When a man pays exactly what a service is worth in a free market, that is justice, not cruelty. Yet the Marxist framing of the modern dating ritual views all male wealth as inherently oppressive. It demands that men constantly redistribute private property to random strangers to cleanse their original sin of being born male. Men are the only net lifetime taxpayers in Western civilization. Our wealth is already heavily extracted via state coercion to subsidize the very societal infrastructure women take for granted. Consider the coachmen of the 19th century who drove the carriages and held the doors. A gentleman's interaction with the driver was about respecting the boundary of labor, not an open license for a female passenger to audit his eternal soul based on a few pennies. Today, women deploy a classic Moti and Bailey fallacy. The Mote, I just want a man who is kind to the working class. The Bailey, if you don't blow your budget on exorbitant gratuities, you are a toxic monster. They deliberately conflate basic stoic decency, which a real man always practices, with socialist wealth transfer. The female observer frames her luxury cosmetics and hypergamous travel as empowering self-care, while male frugality is instantly pathologized as a massive red flag of hidden cruelty. A man's frugality is not stinginess. It is the disciplined, necessary stewardship of resources required to build a sovereign household. To believe a waitress's tip jar validates your virtue is to fall for a catastrophic category error. Let us deploy a syllogism, major premise. A man's virtue is objectively proven by his fulfillment of duties to his own household, wife, and children. Minor premise, a waitress at a local bistro is neither his household nor his child. Conclusion, therefore, over-tipping a waitress proves utterly nothing about a man's domestic virtue. A man can be stoic, quiet, and strictly transactional with total strangers, yet remain overwhelmingly generous, warm, and self-sacrificing toward his covenant wife and legitimate children. These categories are rigorously separate. Why is male morality perpetually on trial? Women claim to despise nice guys who perform generosity purely for covert sexual favors, yet they explicitly design litmus tests like the tip jar audit that force men into performing exactly this kind of financial submission. Under natural law, a man owes an honest wage for an honest day's work. Tipping culture, weaponized by feminist critique, has distorted this into a systemic extortion racket women use to signal faux virtue at the male's expense. The transcendental of justice demands the right ordering of goods. Forcing a man to overpay for mediocre service to appease a female observer's feelings is a micro-injustice. The default assumption that a man is a greedy monster until he buys enough grace is a grotesque insult to male nature. Real men produce more than they consume, and they must hold the line on objective value. When you tip, do so according to the actual service rendered. If your date challenges you, state the reason calmly and logically, and flatly refuse to engage in her pseudo-moral posturing. Do not let her shame you into compliance. Women hold no monopoly on virtue, and a restaurant receipt is not a holy ledger of your character. Remember the maxim, a woman who measures a man's eternal soul by his restaurant receipt will inevitably measure his life's worth by the balance of his bank account. Hold fast to your capital, guard your provision for your true legacy, and never let a date extort the fruits of your labor. That dinner table extortion is merely a dress rehearsal for a far more grotesque theater. The same gynocentric compulsion that lets a date hold your restaurant receipt hostage to her moral approval operates at civilizational scale the moment you step onto a university campus or into a corporate HR department. The shaming mechanism is identical, only the stakes have grown. They no longer merely want your surplus capital, they want your silence. The hemlock of hyperliberalism, silencing the male polis. In 399 BC, the Athenian state forced Socrates to drink a cup of hemlock for the crime of corrupting the youth with uncomfortable questions. Today, the modern university and corporate ecosystems pour an ideological hemlock down the throat of any man who dares to speak the truth. Consider the etymology of the word they endlessly weaponize against us, tolerance. Derived from the Latin tolerare, it historically means to bear or endure speech one finds disagreeable. Yet today's woke commissars and HR departments have inverted this completely. To them, tolerance means actively silencing dissent through the tyrannical enforcement of hyper-liberal orthodoxy. They cannot defeat our empirical reality in open debate, so they ban us from the building, terrified that the logos might actually wake the sleeping giant of male indignation. Look at their fraudulent framing through the lens of basic grammar and logic. Define pluralism from the Latin pluralis, meaning relating to more than one. Genuine pluralism requires the legal existence of distinct differing entities. Apply a simple syllogism to their rules, major premise. A just institution applies its rules universally, regardless of identity. Minor premise, female, LGBT, and minority advocacy groups are universally permitted and funded. Conclusion: therefore, denying identical assembly rights to male groups is inherently unjust, discriminatory, and tyrannical. By banning men, the genocentric regime logically destroys pluralism entirely, leaving a totalitarian, matriarchal monoculture. This is a direct, violent contradiction. An institution cannot champion diversity while dismantling the foundational mechanism of male initiation. It is an unsustainable paradox built on sheer cowardice. They deploy a predictable moat and Bailey fallacy to justify this tyranny. The moat: we must protect marginalized students from systemic hate speech. The Bailey: any gathering of men discussing male suicide rates, family court discrimination, or educational disparities is inherently hateful and must be violently shut down. We saw this cowardice play out in reality at Ryerson University, now Toronto Metropolitan University, where administrators actively blocked students from forming a men's issues club. If a man complains about this gross injustice, he is immediately captured in a Kafka trap. His entirely valid grievance is presented as definitive proof of his fragile masculinity and systemic patriarchy. If he stays silent, he consents to his own cultural erasure. It is a fundamentally unfrightening magic trick, reliant entirely on your willingness to play along with the illusion. The transcendental audit of this systemic bigotry is damning. Does this censorship honor truth? No. It deliberately hides the statistical reality of male suffering. We currently live in a society that actively demonizes, silences, and medicates the exact demographic that builds the roads, maintains the power grids, fights the wars, and pays the net taxes. The gamma bias of academia is undeniable. Female academic success is universally celebrated as a triumph of egalitarian justice, while catastrophic male educational failure is openly cheered as a necessary shedding of obsolete privilege. Meanwhile, the real-world invoice for this feminist utopia is paid daily in male blood, skyrocketing suicides, and the collapse of the nuclear family. Only a suicidal society actively silences the men who carry its infrastructure. Make no mistake, this is a calculated war on apprenticeship and natural law. Freedom of association operates on the principle of subsidiarity, acting as a vital buffer between the isolated individual and the overarching tyrannical state. Men require exclusive spaces to form brotherhoods, examine their specific telos, and build mutual aid networks free from the panopticon of the female gaze. By actively destroying these male-only spaces, the genocentric regime attacks the very mechanism of masculine initiation. This ensures boys remain isolated, effeminate, and permanently dependent on the maternal state. They want you docile, medicated, and porn-sick. This isn't compassion, it is a cowardly re-education camp designed to replace the study of natural law with the worship of victimhood. We must categorically reject the Marxist lie of collective guilt. You are not born inherently toxic. You are not a natural rapist. You are not an oppressor. You are the architects and defenders of the known world. The eradication of the male voice is a direct assault on the logos itself. The masculine principle is the active, form-giving, rational force of civilization. To systematically silence it is to invite ontological chaos and demonic inversion. The trivium, grammar, logic, and rhetoric is our birthright. Yet these universities operate as predatory re-education camps designed to strip you of your capacity for reason. They fear your objective truth because it is the ultimate solvent for their hyper-emotional delusions. The strategy for our restoration is clear. We must stop politely asking permission from the liberal orthodoxy to exist. They will never give us a seat at the table. They prefer we starve. We must aggressively build parallel institutions, forge private guilds, off-campus fraternities, and decentralized digital brotherhoods grounded entirely in the trivium and natural law. Build competence where they build grievance. Let them have their decaying, hyper-liberal lecture halls. Remember the maxim, a civilization that forbids men from speaking the truth will soon discover that men have no reason whatsoever to build, defend, or die for it. Let them choke on their own hemlock. Look at the architectural design of your own psychological subjugation. You have spent your entire life navigating a rigged casino of double binds, mocked for not knowing the complex rules of her equestrian hobby, publicly chastised for leaving a 15% tip on a watered-down drink, forced to absorb the blow of her manufactured public tantrums, and ultimately silenced on the very university campuses your male tax dollars disproportionately fund. I see the ledger of your exhaustion, and I'm telling you that you are paying interest on a debt you never owed. They demand you tolerate a dizzying rate of cuckoldry and paternity fraud, where decades of clinical data reveal that up to 10% of men unknowingly raise the biological offspring of another man, while simultaneously weaponizing the family courts to strip over 80% of fathers of their fundamental rights to their own children. They look at a male suicide rate that sits at nearly 4 times that of women. They look at the demographic data proving men are the only net positive lifetime taxpayers propping up this entire civilization, and they still have the audacity to call you the oppressor. It is a satanic inversion of the natural law. It is a masterclass in coercive communication. But the spell breaks the exact moment you realize the game is rigged, because a rigged game is one you're finally free to stop playing. You do not need to sit in the feminist pottery class of a woman who despises your inherent nature. You do not need to apologize to a waitress who brought you the wrong order. You do not need to endure the chaotic provocations of unruly, destructive ideologues burning down the cultural village, just to test if your armor still fits. Let the hyper-liberal orthodoxies banish you from their sterile, dying institutions. A real man does not beg for a seat at a table built on his own back. He simply builds his own. You are the inheritor of the architects of the Parthenon, the drafters of the Magna Carta, and the masons who laid the foundations of the known world. Your worth is not determined by how flawlessly you decode her contradictory mood swings or how well you tolerate non-consensual verbal intercourse. Your value is eternally affirmed by your obedience to objective reality, your mastery of your craft, and your relentless, unapologetic production of truth. Walk out of the pottery class. Tip exactly what the service is objectively worth. Refuse to validate her manufactured crises and build your brotherhoods in the shadows, if you must, until they are strong enough to stand in the light. You are not toxic. You are the load-bearing pillar of reality itself. Reclaim your speech, stand anchored in the logos, and let your revealed preference be the relentless pursuit of the true, the good, and the beautiful. Go forth, build your sovereignty, and let the architects of this modern Babylon choke on the dust of your departure. Sponsored book, Coercive Communication, Feminist Mind Rape and Non-Consensual Verbal Intercourse. Men are not born to beg. I learned this the hard way. 20 years ago, I watched my father's construction business collapse after a sexual harassment lawsuit, later proven false, drained our family's savings. At 32, I nearly lost custody of my sons when my ex-wife weaponized California's divorce system against me. By 40, I'd survived 3 egalitarian relationships that left me financially gutted and spiritually hollow. This book exists because I crawled through that hell to find truth. What I discovered will save your life. Our civilization is dying. Marriage rates have cratered. Birth rates plummet. Boys flounder without fathers. Men shuffle through existence doped on porn, video games, and antidepressants, while institutions demonize their nature. The root isn't complex. We abandoned the Dominion Code, the sacred operating system governing masculine responsibility and feminine collaboration. This isn't theory. The data screams it. 72% of men in equal marriages report chronic dissatisfaction. Gen Z's suicide rates triple as gender ideology poisons their minds. Finland's teen mental health crisis proves the cost of denying biological reality. This book is for builders, protectors, and truth seekers, men who feel the cosmic itch to lead despite cultural castration. You'll learn why happiness pursuits destroy souls. Harvard proved it. How to bulletproof marriages using Adam and Eve dynamics. Amish divorce rates 1%. And why financial OPSEC matters more than romance in the gynocratic legal hellscape. We'll dissect feminist mind viruses through theology, Genesis 3:16, stoic praxis, and cold statistics. You'll master reality scripting via the CTMU framework, the universe's hidden syntax that lets men shape destiny through disciplined speech. If you're content being a domesticated pet, if phrases like toxic masculinity trigger you, or the thought of leading a family terrifies you, close this book now. Go binge Netflix, debate pronouns online. This isn't for you. For the remnant who still hear the lion's roar in their DNA, what comes next is your arsenal. The satanic gender war won't be fought with guns, but through unbreakable frames, airtight marriage contracts, and brotherhoods rebuilding Western civilization. You'll rediscover the logos, Christ's cosmic grammar that structured reality from void. Learn why Rome fell when men bowed to Julian divorce laws, how to enforce the sacred no, and why your future sons must master wilderness survival before TikTok. Your ancestors didn't carve nations from wilderness to spawn weaklings debating feelings. They built cathedrals, forged constitutions, conquered plagues. That blood still pumps in your veins. This book is your reactivation manual. Read it, live it, become the oak in the hurricane. The alternative is extinction. Coercive Communication, Feminist Mind Rape and Non-Consensual Verbal Intercourse, written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.